Hello, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to our CSGO news episode. If you're still here after yesterday's episode, I really do appreciate you guys. We had a strange day yesterday, but I'm back. As always, my name is Jake, and welcome back to CSGO news. Some great stories out there, and as per usual, leave a comment down below what you think about today's top stories, because there are some insane things still going down and still continuing throughout the CSGO scene. Ironically enough, we talked about in yesterday's episode Swag's potential roster, because he was still, as of yesterday, on his own, a potential IEM Sydney spot, ESL Pro League spot. I'm pretty confident when I do say now he has probably lost that IEM Sydney spot, but the Pro League spot will be retained for Swole Patrol, and this roster confirmed by Zellsis himself, which I would be lying if I said I was hyped up for. I'm excited for them to see how they actually do, but I always try my best to be honest with you guys. We're gonna break down, analyze the roster, and see what we think about it in opening thoughts wise. But as always, I hope you guys all enjoy. Before we actually break down the roster itself, also Tempo Storm sales guy has already responded to the tweet itself. This roster for their Pro League spot for the upcoming season already has interest. Don't get me started about Tempo Storm, okay? Over the past 2 years, I think 4, maybe 5 teams have actually come and gone out of the organization. It's not been a struggle of how they treat their players necessarily. I think at one point in time they tried to hold two rosters, a Brazilian roster and a European roster. It was just way too over invested, I imagine. Along with that, though, the usual problem they have had, especially when HS was there, was actually acquiring the right players. If they get a full roster, I have no qualms with Tempo Storm taking control of this roster going forward. And either way, I'm excited to actually see what you guys think about them, and also see how they perform in the upcoming season of Pro League, because they certainly will not be a favored team. Because you got to look at this roster, and again, I'm curious what you guys think about this. Yes, you have Zellsis, Cloud9 experience for his trial throughout the major experience, brings back great insight probably for this roster. Infinite alongside him. Infinite was the competition to actually take that Cloud9 spot. Yes, some tweets surfaced that probably did not influence their decision. So you have Zellsis, you have Infinite, who are actually going to be Cloud9 potentials. So you have to think that in the scene out there, and by players as well as organizations, they are seen to have some potential to actually join a top North American team. Along with them, though, you also have Sabrosa. I think a solid keystone for this team. I think recency is a huge thing when it comes to Counter-Strike, and his most recent experience with Ghost Gaming was phenomenal. I think especially overall as a team, as Ghost Gaming, his best results of his entire career so far. I think Sabrosa is a very solid player. If he gets it churning with this roster in terms of chemistry and actually unlocking their potential, I really like the Sabrosa pickup here for this team. Along with them, of course, we're going to see Dapper. Dapper coming from E United. He was really kind of mixed and mashed into several roles for E United, as many of their former roster was. I got a lot of respect for the guy for hanging on so long and the way he was treated, because we all know currently right now E United is not the best looked upon organization in CSGO, and rightfully so for how they came about their latest roster. And then finally you got Swag, right? Swag is the heavy hitter, the high potential player of this roster, which they certainly need. When you look across the entire piece of paper for this 5-man roster, they need a high fragger, and I think he's going to be the guy to potentially unlock that. If he does not, though, is where I probably see these problems start to unravel themselves. You also got to remember, guys, ESL Pro League has a brand new format. It's not going to be a so on week by week playing 2 matches format. It's actually 2 different rounds at 2 different times, and the top 3 teams in the first round actually advance. It's kind of a bit confusing. I'll try and link it down below for all of you, but pretty much even in this new format, as it were the old format too, this will not be a favored roster for ESL Pro League to make it through. Actually, in one term of question though is right now, I'm not sure there's actually still relegation matches in the same way they were before. I got to make sure to clarify that in the future for all of you. So pretty much what it comes down to, TLDR, if you wanted to skip the first few minutes of the video, Swag is a high potential player, often overrated though by many people in the public. Can he actually meet the high expectations we set for him is going to be a huge factor for this team. I think Sabrosa is a very solid player. Infinite and Zellsis, in my opinion, are actually high potential players, but are widely unproven, especially Infinite. When you look where this guy's come from, he has not played this level of CSGO yet in his career. The highest teams he's played against are the Rogues, are the Swole Patrols. So gonna be excited to see how he actually performs when stepping up one step, I guess you could say, if you want to approach it that way. And Dapper, I'm very curious what role this guy will fill. This is certainly not going to be a favored team, but it will be one of my favorite teams to actually watch. A team full of players who've been beat and battered and pushed from rosters, and actually had rosters kind of move away from them. So this is in my kind of overall see so far, definitely a throw together roster roster, but a roster I'm definitely going to be cheering for and definitely excited for, but a lot of questions left unanswered with this new Swole Patrol potentially to be signed by some team out there. And then we currently have the DreamHack Masters Dallas Open qualifiers going on. Why am I mentioning this? First of all, one big piece of information out there. We thought Flusha was on a break. He's currently rejoining. It's going to be Snyder and Pronax. They're kind of mixed team going through. We announced them a long time ago. They knock out OpTic of the Open qualifiers. And let me say this, OpTic is looking in complete shambles. That's why I mentioned that piece of news out there. I got the chance to say a few words to Pronax last week, and he said he's been very busy, has apparently some things in the works. I don't know what those things are going to be in the future, but I'm very excited to see what this might be, because if Flusha sticks it out with these guys, I still think he can make just about anything happen with this roster. But this also starts the memories churning, right? I think a lot of us want to see currently if Flusha does come back anytime soon. I think Fnatic might be calling his name, or obviously a lot of teams are calling his name, but I'm excited to see where this guy goes, especially alongside Snyder and Pronax, where they're going to go. A lot of things in the Swedish scene right now, we just don't have questions. We have a lot of questions, just not enough answers to see where they're going. Now, I speak about this as well because OpTic looking very broken, according to Rush B Media, guys, makes great articles. Read them down below because this one is actually very crazy. According to Rush B, it's going to be OpTic Gaming to apparently only be having Yugi leave the roster. They're going to be retaining K0nfig, which does mean in turn as well Cloud9 to be keeping Kioshima. Now, my first thoughts about this are all over the map, because I am truly hoping from the bottom of my heart. Now, again, a lot of us can't really truly know what's going on inside these organizations, what's going on deep inside these players. That sounds kind of weird to say, but I truly do hope that it was not the fact that Cloud9 all of a sudden, and we kind of got to give them credit, right? We likely should have known that the management team, as confirmed now a few days ago, yes, if Cloud9 did kick Kioshima, they would ensuingly lose their major spot. I really, really hope it wasn't a lapse of judgment that all of a sudden they realize, yo, we can't kick Kio because then we lose our major spot, and that's the only reason they're trying to keep him. I hope they're paying him the big bucks to actually stay on that roster, and I hope Kioshima still feels he has a home at this Cloud9 roster, because dare I say, I think both rosters come away for the better with this half kind of swap. And this is where I need your thoughts down below, because there's so many different parts going on, so many different moving parts for this, because if this does reign true, you have a Cloud9 keeping a Kioshima who arguably, yes, when it comes to fragging power and ceilings out there for players, you have to put K0nfig likely above Kioshima in that, even though Kioshima has had some great times with Cloud9. I will say this though, keeping Kioshima and not getting K0nfig, you have a Kioshima who knows at least part of this roster and Russian automatic. He's played around them for some time, not necessarily golden in that sense, as well as the remaining part of this roster. You keep a Kioshima, I think still has some great potential for this roster, has had some great times for the roster, but it still leaves so many open questions for the future of this, right? This would mean if they pick up Yugi for the opping role, automatic goes back to the lurking role. You might worry about the role switch back for him, although that's his bread and butter. A lot of us are probably more excited to see him back in that role and probably unlock even more power for this roster. But still, then you have Yugi, right? Do you trust him being the opper for this team? I don't know. I still think he was one of the better OpTic members, but then you look at what OpTic has done and what does that really say for itself? And then very last, you still have an IGL who has not IGL'd, that being golden, for months. We don't know his health issues. He has not been around this. He's been around the roster, but he's not been inside the roster for several months. And so this means the Cloud9 roster going forward, yes, they may look stronger to some of us, but they still have not proven what they're actually capable of. Still some big losses, especially when Flusha left the roster. You still have a highly inconsistent Rush. I like this roster keeping Kioshima, but there's still going to be a lot of whirlwind ahead of this team and what they can actually achieve. And then very lastly, the OpTic Gaming roster. This makes a lot more sense than actually what Rush B came out with. This actually attuning to what this roster probably needed a lot more. When we first heard the rumors, it was Yugi along with K0nfig leaving, MSL and Nico from Rogue joining, which left you thinking, why would you need MSL when you had Snappy, or vice versa? Why would you need Snappy when you have MSL coming in? This makes a lot more sense, confirmed by Ryan B. The rumors out there now do point to K0nfig to be staying with the OpTic roster. They still acquire MSL and Nico from Rogue, effectively punching them in the throat. I don't know what Rogue's going to do at this point, and this also means cutting Snappy. So you're down Yugi, you're down Snappy, you acquire Nico and MSL, and you keep K0nfig on this roster. And with this being said, you keep your best player in K0nfig. You also, though, keep two of your best three, and K0nb still retaining on this roster as well. And you pick up players who are arguably going to be huge improvements or huge potential players. Nico, I've told you guys guys time and time again, a player throughout 2018, even maybe back to 2017. I saw this guy having hopefully opportunities to shine. This will be that opportunity if it's a long-term engagement for this player, and that's going to be former Heroic Nico as well. He's been bouncing around from team to team a long time in his career so far. Nico, very high potential. MSL is going to take over the Snappy IGLing role, which we know that Snappy was not doing a successful job at. An automatic improvement. You keep 2 of your 3 best players and you improve your entire roster. This is a great OpTic change, and I have not said that for the longest time. And as always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy. I have lost my breath several times in the past few minutes, but honestly, these roster changes get me so excited to see all these teams possibly making improvements. Not every team can get better though, right? I'm excited to see how Swag and his new roster does perform. I'm very excited to see the new OpTic Gaming. I'm excited to see a lot of teams out there and how they can actually compete with this new meta coming around. You know, shotguns maybe being back in the meta, and again, as we slowly approach, let's not forget, we are only a few months away from when a lot of these teams are going to be back in their European or North American minors for our next major and competing right away with some new rosters. So as always, I hope you guys all enjoy. Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. I read every comment. I don't respond all the time, but I read them all, okay? Until next time, hopefully tomorrow, I'll be seeing you guys. Until then, take care.